I think we can wait for maybe a couple more minutes and then start based on how people join.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And to everyone who's joined already, thank you for being here. We will start very shortly. Hi, everyone who's joined. Thank you so much for joining. I think we might just give it another minute or so before we begin. We'll just let a couple other people join and then we can start.
Hi, Alan.
Okay, I think we can begin, if that sounds good. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us today and for joining the session. My name is Ishita. I'm based out of Mumbai, India. I did the Terra LFA about 4 years ago now. So I was part of the Pandas cohort and really, really enjoyed my journey. I've been a community ambassador with Terra ever since. I love hosting these events, meeting wonderful people like you, and just creating a platform where we can have this dialogue together. And today we have the extremely wonderful and talented Clare joining us. And I'm going to hand over to Clare to introduce a little bit about herself and then to go into the talk. A little bit of housekeeping before we start is that I just wanted to request people to please turn their cameras on if possible. It's much nicer for all of us to just see each other's faces, particularly when someone is presenting. And I think it would just be thank you for everyone who is listening in and doing this. Yeah, I thought it would just be so much nicer to interact. Claire's going to present for 20 to 25 minutes, after which we will open up the floor for question and answers. We can please feel free to raise your hand after the presentation is over if you want to ask a question. If you are more comfortable, you can put it in the Q&A box or the chat and I will read it out. Yeah, if you have any other questions, then please let me know and we're happy to dive in. Over to you, Clare.
Thank you so much, Shita. Hi, everyone. Hello, Alan. We were in the same cohort together. Nice to see you. Yeah, my name is Claire, and I'm an artist, and I also did the Terra program, and it was wonderful. So really happy to be here. And I'll just jump into my presentation. So yeah, my name is Clare Celeste, and sorry, one second. Let me just make sure I can see my screen. One moment. There it is. Okay. So my name is Clare Celeste, and I'm an artist. I'm best known for these immersive three-dimensional collages that depict the dazzling and dizzying abundance of our planet's biodiversity. I try to represent a kaleidoscope of flora and fauna pulled from archives in the public domain, and they enmesh the viewer into a world of color and beauty. I want to inspire audiences through the splendor of biodiversity to rekindle their connection to the living earth and to advocate for earth stewardship through that universal language of beauty. I really believe, and science shows this, that our nervous systems are hardwired to connect to nature. Studies show that our brains react positively to color, and this is because our ancient brains developed to scan for bursts of color, as this could mean berries, fruit, really food, which meant survival. So that joy that we feel at color, it's not merely aesthetic. It's really a deeper remembering, an imprint of our pre-modern minds, a reminder of our reliance on the natural world for our very survival. And perhaps this is why bright botanical imagery and my own work resonate even in our late capitalist world. They touch upon this instinctual pull towards nature. But doing my work, it has become impossible to ignore that much of the biodiversity that I'm depicting in my artwork is rapidly vanishing or has already vanished, driven to extinction in what scientists call the sixth mass extinction event. So I've had to rethink the why of what I'm doing. If the world I'm depicting has already vanished and what little remains will be greatly impoverished in the coming decades due to the climate catastrophe, then what is my work really about? And what does it mean to connect humans to a world that, for younger folks or for those yet to be born, they may never encounter in their lifetimes? In the last months, I've read voraciously to try to make sense of what, if anything, it means to make art inspired by a natural world going extinct before our eyes. I read the gorgeous biography of Alexander von Humboldt, The Invention of Nature, and discovered his global understanding of ecosystems and was very inspired by his work. His vision really resonated deeply with me, especially his prescient warnings that gases released into the atmosphere could change the climate with disastrous implications for ecosystems. And he was writing this hundreds of years ago, so very impressive. But unexpectedly, it was when I was reading my favorite childhood book, The Island of the Blue Dolphins, to my 10-year-old son that I finally understood what it meant to be creating work about the nature of the Holocene, our previous geological era, while living in the Anthropocene. And I often write and talk about how my love of nature was born in Brazil, in the lush jungles. And that's true, but revisiting The Island of the Blue Dolphins 3 decades after first reading it, I was reminded that as a city kid in Washington, D.C., this book gave me a sense of kinship with the natural world that has remained with me to this day. On the surface, it's a survival adventure. A young girl is stranded alone on an island for 18 years and needs to learn to hunt, fish, and forage. But really, it's a love poem to the living earth, and it etched into me a sense of belonging to nature. So of course, it didn't all happen in books. The impact of seeing the splendor of the Amazon as a child was also profound. But as I get older, the real Amazon is logged and burned, relentlessly pushed towards an irreversible tipping point that could turn that lush tapestry of life into a desert. I noticed something, that the Amazon of my imagination grows louder, more vibrant, and more lush. And when I think about what inspires my work and what gives me this sense of connection to nature, I realize now that it's a mix. It comes from memory, it comes from imagination, it comes from books, and it comes from encounters with abundance. So all woven together and they come together into this language of love for our planet that I try to communicate through my artwork. And this kinship is not only in imagination, it's also embodied in our bodies. After childbirth, as I was nursing through these sleepless nights, I remember watching my infant son's hands curl into fists around my finger, which is an ancient reflex left over from our time as primates when babies clung to their mother's fur. And I thought, oh, my little monkey. And even now, when I feel, maybe panic, when I'm under fluorescent lights in supermarket with this endless packaging and flow of strangers, I think to myself, my soft animal body, and I think, oh, my little primate, you are far from forests and foraging, far from your small tribe of humans. And our ancient bodies, unchanged in 200,000 years of evolution, are wired for close connection with each other and with ecosystems. And they reel in our atomized modern life as we stare into our devices, separated from the natural world, from each other, and ultimately from ourselves. And our bodies long for forests, for rivers, for tribes, for connection. And so we've not only destroyed the habitats of countless species, we've also driven a cleft between ourselves and our own home. And as our physical ties fray, our cultural ties unravel too. As Grist recently reported, once upon a time, the English language was full of stories with blossoms, rivers, and moss. But these words are disappearing from our vocabularies, and along with them, our connection to the natural world they describe. A study published in the journal Earth found that the use of nature-related words declined more than 60% between 1800 and 2019. Another study found a marked decline in references in books to 134 common species names, bee, goose, honeysuckle, over the course of the 20th century. And even children's picture books and Disney films portray nature less than they once did. One researcher put it simply, when nature disappears from culture, then all these opportunities to evoke appreciation for nature, respect for nature, interest in nature, those disappear. So we're living through what scientists call the shifting baseline. Each generation, we are also living through what scientists call the shifting baseline. Each generation comes of age with a more impoverished version of nature and believes it to be normal. So when my son turns 12, we plan to take a scuba diving course together, and he will, of course, marvel at this newly discovered undersea world. And yet, unlike my husband and I, he will not know what has been lost. This is the danger of the shifting baseline. With each generation, our sense of normal nature contracts until the memory of true abundance fades from culture altogether. But perhaps this is where the arts can serve as a bridge, carrying forward a vision of abundance and that sense of wonder, belonging, and interconnection, even if only through imagination. And so I now think of my work as imagination rewilding. The dazzling abundance I depict is already gone, but these collages are not nostalgic. They are a reminder of what our planet is capable of providing, not of the exact species, many of which are gone forever, but of the diversity of our endlessly adaptive, resilient, creative planet, that it might offer again if we act in service of life instead of against it. Adrienne Marie Brown has written, quote, "We are living inside the imagination of people who see environmental destruction as acceptable. We know the devastation this has caused to our planetary health, our mental health, even our democracies. We are living in their imagination as we stare into our screens and see the world burn in the periphery of our vision." But imagination is a renewable resource. We can tell other stories, older stories of deep interconnection with the natural world, and new stories about living within ecosystems, not on top of them. We live in an incredible and terrifying time. Never before has humanity's imagination and innovation so directly shaped whether generations of life will thrive or not. Of course, there are so many possibilities. Among the thousands of solutions already waiting to be scaled are, among my favorites, rewilding projects, microforests in cities, carbon sequestering ocean farms, protecting what biodiversity we still have and regenerating what has been lost. And of course, the most urgent, an immediate and decisive turn away from fossil fuels and toward renewable energy harvested from the sun, the wind, the earth, and the tides. The earth truly does provide. But what I want to dedicate this small and geologically speaking, utterly insignificant moment of life that I have on this wondrous planet is to this imagination rewilding. To think about, what did the Holocene once offer us? What abundance is the planet capable of providing? And if climate science tells us anything, it is this: things will surely get worse before they get better. So the question becomes, what can carry us through this time? What can carry us through the climate catastrophe and toward a future where our planet can recover, adapt, and regenerate? Perhaps what will carry us through is our imagination. Because before anything we create exists in the world, it exists first in our minds. We imagine the world we live in now, a world of extraction, of burning, of disconnection. But we can also imagine another one into being. A world of belonging, a world of abundance, a world where life flourishes again. Perhaps the key to saving our planet's biodiversity is not only rewilding our landscapes, but rewilding our imaginations. Thank you. And I look forward to our discussion.
Thank you so much, Claire. That was just wonderful. And I think seeing all of those visuals alongside everything that you said was just really moving, and I think struck a chord with all of us who are trying to work more in this space. But I do want to open up the floor to questions now. So if anyone has anything that they would like to ask, share, perfect. Yes, please feel free to raise your hand. Sakshi, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah. Claire, I'm sorry. First of all, I'm not switching on my video. I've just come back from work, so I look like hell. But
Nice to not see you.
beautiful art. I'm a filmmaker and I'm very deeply moved by the visuals that you showed today. So thank you so much. I think my question could sound generic, but as I can understand that there is a certain emotional uh, move that you want to have people feel, that you're using art to have them and invoke that feeling in them. And I just wanted to understand, art's often the last resort of measure that a company would look at, fund, sanction, put money in, um, or believe, because we'd always go for marketing, we'd always go for product, we'd always go for branding and such measures. So, as an artist who's in this climate space, trying to move people, build a voice for them, how does that look when it comes to from a commercial business angle? What are the funds, companies, how companies look at it, and how do you go about it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I have to say that after I did the Terra, and during around the time that I did the Terra course was a time that I decided I actually stopped being an artist for a while. I worked in the climate space because I was like, the world is burning. What am I doing? I need to do something that matters. And I worked in a carbon accounting company for 6 months. And to be perfectly honest, I was super miserable. Because I'm an artist. And that's the only thing that like really makes me happy. And I also kind of felt that I wasn't doing my best work. Like I did okay, like I didn't do a bad job. I think I did a fine job. But I just think that I'm a better artist than I am a social media manager, or like, better at making art than I am at writing newsletters, or I just felt like, I felt like I had better work to offer the climate space. And but it was like a learning process for me because I did quit doing art mainly for that reason, right? Because I didn't like working for commercial clients. Like I felt like I was, it wasn't aligned with my vision. But since then I've decided to go back and be an artist. And honestly, I do make most of my money from commercial jobs and commissions. Some clients I love, some I don't. But it allows me to fund my more advocacy work, right? Like for instance, I have like, right now I'm juggling a bunch of commissions. I have one for a public school, which is awesome, right? Like that's like building like a permanent work with local flora and fauna. The whole idea is to like reconnect kids with their local habitat. Really excited about that one. And then I have a couple for, high fashion brands, which is like the meh. But I'm really glad because they pay me enough money to make me be able to keep doing my work. And then, when Greenpeace recently came up to me and said, we want to do a campaign for COP in Brazil, but we only have this tiny amount of money to pay you, I was like, that's fine, right? Like, that's okay. Like I can do these passion projects. I'm also doing an exhibition about the extinction crisis at a major natural history museum in a couple months, which I'm not allowed to formally announce, but if you follow me, I'll announce it. Really excited, totally aligned with what I want to do, does not pay the bills. Right? So I think what I found is that that I just learned this, like like I need to be an artist because that's who I am. I don't think I can be anything else, and be really happy. And then I think that my artwork is important, and I think that the advocacy work that I'm doing is important, and I always allow time and resources for it. And then I allow the commercial work to fund this work, right? And so it's a little bit of a balance. But yeah, I think I ended up quitting being an artist because I got really Puritan about it. And I was like, I will only work for folks in the climate space, and they don't have enough budgets to hire artists in their marketing. So I basically said no to everything for a year and then had no money. Yeah, which is not like sustainable, right? I think like that's like also my new thing. I mean, it's so hard to make it as an artist. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat it, right? So my baseline is like I need to be able to sustain myself because that's another part of sustainability. And then but I do a lot of work that's very, very aligned, and I feel like the longer and harder I work, the more aligned projects come my way. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I know that your field, particularly because it's very experiential physically, it's
Mhm.
not something that translates, that can be further blown up and then experienced by people who are not present there, then just
Yeah.
makes it even more harder for brands to see the value and why that it would be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, brands do see the value, actually. That's really nice. I'm able to like,
Yeah, I mean, like now that you're saying that, like today,
yeah.
like how Nike does their campaigns, right?
Right. So many brands.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And which is great because artists can, pay their rent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mary, go ahead.
Sorry, I have to take myself off mute. Amazing work that you do. I'm not familiar with it, so this has been a beautiful learning experience. But the medium, are you doing like three-dimensional murals? Like they seem very large. And then is there anything that you do? Is that right? Is that what they are? Like three-dimensional large
Yeah, they
murals?
are. Yeah.
Beautiful. And then is there any way that you are able to capture that and make it, smaller, or an image or something?
Yeah, I do. I actually, I do sort of, I have a, I focus more on installations, but I do have a lot of smaller works. And actually really sweet, there's a really lovely, very, sort of, at least from what I know, a woman-owned business, with, they do nice, beautiful puzzles, for instance, like that was like a commission, and sometimes I do,
Interesting.
magazine illustrations and things like that. So yeah, it definitely does scale down.
And is it now the pieces that you put in the installation, are they like from photographs, or I think you touched on it a bit at the beginning, but I was
Yeah.
just trying to get connected.
Yeah. So there, it's all collage, most of it. There's also some just cut paper pieces. The ones with the dancer, that's not collage, that's just paper. But they're collages, and they're from public domain images, and a lot of them are from this really wonderful project called the Biodiversity Heritage Library, which is a nonprofit organization of natural history scientists from all over the world, and they scan and upload their images. So it's free, it's amazing. It used to be hosted by the Smithsonian, but alas, no more.
Mhm.
But this is where this is where I really woke up to the biodiversity crisis, because these images are all sort of they're not pre-colonial. They're at the cusp of they're definitely not they are very colonial, actually. They're all drawn mostly by colonialists, actually. But they're mostly pre-industrial, or just on the cusp of the industrial era. So
Okay.
yeah, this ecosystem that literally, like, we are in a different geological era from where those drawings are made from. So it's really, really, really a world that no longer exists. But I'm so grateful for these artists that made these beautiful, recordings of these species.
Yeah, great. Okay, so to the Terra do people, I was listening, so I wasn't typing, but are we going to get this recording so I could get the names of some of these references that Claire's given us?
I will check. I do think it is accessible, but I will check internally and let you know about it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
If
Thank
you-
you, Claire. Beautiful work.
I can also check if we can just ask Claire to compile a list of names or resources that is helpful.
Yeah,
We can shoot
I can
that.
put those into the chat, perhaps.
Great, thanks.
Does anyone else have any questions that you'd like to ask? Okay,
Oh, great.
I have a few. Maybe I can ask. I think one was, what kind of inspires you to put together a piece? So what is your creative process if someone comes to you and says, hey, I'm going to give you a free rein, do whatever you want? How do you pick what different species you'd like to bring together? How do you pick the kind of form you want it to take? Everything, start to finish, how do you think through something like this?
Yeah, so once in a blue moon, I get like actual creative freedom. But I have a project. I can tell you about it. I'm really, really excited about it. I got an arts organization in Germany reached out to me in this teensy tiny little like medieval village in the middle of in Rhineland, forget Westphalian, anyways, by the river, lots of castles, lots of wine. and yeah, it's this tiny little village, hasn't changed in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. It's gorgeous.
Is there more coffee, honey?
What? Oh, sorry.
Need to mute myself again. Sorry.
And they have this beautiful old church that I get to do an installation inside of. And my plan is to do a really large suspended piece from the ceiling, and have it sort of be like a spiraling sort of swarm, kind of like birds or fish, you know, this like spiraling movements that you see in nature. And I'm gonna do just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of species of biodiversity, including some of their local flora and fauna, because they're, I mean, like everywhere, but they're very impacted by climate change, because they have this one butterfly called the Apollo butterfly that's native there, and it's very reliant on this one type of plant for its food. And that plant is very susceptible to climate change because it needs a lot of moisture and not so much sun. So basically, it's going extinct. There was very, very few left in the wild. So my thought was to do sort of a homage to nature inside of a church, and I was sort of like nature worship, you know, like bringing the sort of the sacredness of nature into the sacred space. And I didn't know, they asked me about what music I wanted to do, and I wasn't sure, but I went to a wedding this weekend, and there were these two yodelers, which I would have never had on my radar, but it was absolutely beautiful. They came in and they sang, and then they broke the wedding group into different groups, and we sang together in unison, and it was just this, yeah, spiritual experience. Felt very connected with the mountains around us. We were in Bavaria in the mountains, and I asked them if they would do a performance, not only so that they can sing, but so that they can fill the church with people and that we can all sing together, because I thought that that was really beautiful. So that's the one project that they basically just said, here's the budget, here's the space, you can do whatever you want. And that'll go up in May of next year. So I'm very excited about that.
That sounds lovely, and I think we would love to see pictures of it.
Yeah, I'll definitely share. Yeah.
Yes, Gretchen, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, your work is really beautiful and really meaningful. So really a lot of gratitude for that. I wanted to ask you about how, like after the Terra Do program, I'm also an artist. I work in a lot of different mediums, but mostly oil paint. How do you think about the sustainability of the actual pieces that you do and the circularity of those? Like, did Terra Do change the way that you look at that? Or is there like, resources or information that you turn to make your art more sustainable?
Yeah, I mean, so I yes and no. So I did do a piece after the Terra work where I did it with bioplastic. Like I literally just, you know, didn't use paper, used bioplastic. I mean, I'm working with paper, which is pretty environmentally friendly. But that said, sometimes I do use something called latex prints. And that has plastic in it, and it's not environmentally friendly. But on the other hand, it lasts way longer than paper, right? And I can use the images over and over and over again. So I don't know, there's like this like meme of someone at a grocery store, and there's like a local, or there's like an organic apple from Spain and like a local non-organic apple, and they're looking at it and their head just explodes and they don't know which one to buy. So
Yeah.
like I think that definitely happens with me, and I went through a
Sure.
long phase where I was just like, I have no idea what to make and how to make it. But yeah, I've decided that I go do it project by project. For my personal projects, I use paper, because I can like, you know, be careful about it, and it lasts a really long time. It's not like it's going to fall apart. But if, for instance, I'm doing something like with the school or for a museum where there's kids that are going to be coming up and touching it, I can't use paper. I have to use something else. And then I go with the more durable but less environmentally friendly option, which I know like really isn't a perfect answer. And honestly, this is one of the reasons why I stopped making art for a while, is that I felt really paralyzed by this. But then I've decided that I'm really careful. I'm not wasteful. And ideally, my art isn't going to end up in a landfill, right? Like, I want it to be there to last. And when I do the works on durable materials, the idea is that they're there for a very, very, very long time. Yeah. Yeah. So not a perfect answer. Because there's not like a ton of options for really durable, sustainable prints that don't include any plastic, you know. Like, for instance, I got excited. I was like, oh, look, there's like stone paper. Like, you don't even have to use trees, right? But then you like dig into that, and that's just actually plastic. You know, like, there's so many things. And then the bioplastic that I was doing, like, I had to like order agar, like the, you know, I don't know if I'm saying that right, the seaweed, but I had to like ship that from somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like,
I know, it's complicated.
It's much more, it's so tricky. And I feel like if anything, doing the Terra course just made me appreciate how tricky it is, right? Like, was my bioplastic piece sustainable if I considered that I had to like ship in, you know, seaweed powdered from somewhere else? I don't know. It sounds cool. It sounds like it's sustainable, but is that better than like a locally sourced paper? I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, it's really very specific case by case based on where you live, where it's coming from, like how it's shipped, like to do a life cycle analysis. There probably the tables don't exist that much for fine art materials and things like that. So it is really tricky and complicated.
Yeah, 100%. But I have a print shop by Sakshi. Yeah, so I think I'm really lucky. There's a local print shop that the owner is actually a total environmentalist and really lovely. So they are careful about having sustainable paper and inks, and they have the information about it. So I always work with them. Yeah, it's just sort of like a lucky chance that the owner of the shop is someone who really cares. Like, he's, you know, he doesn't eat meat, and he's always thinking, you know, he like plants trees for every shipment that he gets, all that stuff. Like, he's really awesome. But even he has to admit it's complicated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all struggling to figure it out, and it is complicated, and there aren't always market ready solutions. But it'd be great to get like a consortium of like green artists together, like trying to figure it out, like to work collaboratively to like sort through some of this and help source things like that. That could be really
Inks
valuable.
are really tricky as well. You know, printer inks.
Ink is really tricky.
Yeah, I tried to do a sustainable print, and the colors were so faded that the client was like, no. So it didn't work.
Yeah, algae and seaweed and soy inks. Yeah, they don't have the same
the different aesthetic,
so far.
right?
Yeah.
No, I don't have I mean, and I think that the 6 months that I worked at the carbon accounting organization, like, that was also such a good lesson in terms of sort of the limitations and the possibilities for doing decarbonized sustainable work. And I think a lot of the problems are like further down the supply chain. You know what I mean? Like, it's really tricky. I mean, really, I felt like I was like, do I make work with dirt? Like, literally, like, I tried. And then I was like, oh, I'll work with clay. I was like, okay. And I hate working with clay. It is like, I am so like, I like paper. It is dry. It folds. Like, it is my medium. But I was like, okay, maybe I try like clay. But then the kiln is really carbon intensive, right?
Yeah,
so I kept ending up in these dead ends, and then just always came back to paper. And then my feeling is that I work with certified sustainable paper, not always recycled, unfortunately. When I do small size, I do recycled. When I do big size, that just doesn't exist. Like, I can't find like large, but it's but they buy from a local European paper company that has sustainable practices. So that's one thing.
Yeah, that's one way to do it, like, you know, at that scale. Well, your story is really interesting, like your journey, like on sustainability as an artist. And I hope that maybe you'll share it at some point, like write it up.
Yeah, I think I want to. I was thinking that I'm actually working to do an artist book in 2026. So
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gretchen.
Thank you, Gretchen. That sounds lovely also, just the book. Isabel, do you have a question?
Quick one. I just was wondering if you have your bioplastic recipe. I'm collecting recipes, and I live on an island in the Salish Sea in Washington State, and I've been collecting seaweed. I've been doing marine science projects, and I'm toying with I have agar on hand to add if I need to. And but anyway, I just was wondering if you had a recipe you'd be willing to share what
Yeah.
you've done.
I forget where I found it. It was online, so it's available, but I wouldn't go with the recipe that I did because it was very sticky and not very stable. It kind of, yeah, it was so funny. It was during like those like first weeks of the pandemic when I thought it was going to be over in 6 weeks. And I was like, oh, this is just my like interim project. My husband called it the witch's kitchen because I was always like every night like stirring pots like agar and pouring it over the mirror of my I only had like a big mirror anyways. It was weird. But what happened was that it was I mean it looked cool. It's called the Healing Garden. I think it's on my website still. I like gathered branches. Also super weird, like crazy neighbor, like dragging trees into their apartment. It was yeah, kind of classic pandemic project. But anyways, so it was like sustainable, it was like branches, but then a lot of the recipes called for gelatin, like animal-based gelatin. And at the time I was vegan, so it just like felt so wrong. So I used plant-based gelatin, but I think that made the the bioplastic like pretty unstable. So it would like sweat if it got hot and stuff. So it wasn't, I think that I could find the recipe online, but I wouldn't recommend it. I think that there's other better recipes. Also really funny, once I took it to the park, because I was cutting out like individual leaves here. I can drop the image of it. And I took it to the park to fill out and to cut out, and was promptly attacked by all of these ants because the seaweed was so sweet. They were like, ooh, food. So it was very organic. It was food for nature, but the recipe wasn't. Yeah, I think I would have needed to figure something else out if I really needed it like in a public space. Yeah. It tasted like fruit roll-up. I tried it.
Maybe a different opportunity. I don't know.
Yeah, edible art.
Yeah.
Sorry, who was that asked that question?
Isabel here. Isabel
Isabel
Davis.
Davis? Oh,
Yep.
okay. Actually, I'll connect with you because I just did a climate project with a couple of women run businesses, and both of them are in seaweed. Complete different applications for seaweed.
Yeah.
One's a cement replacement and one's like packaging. So you might be interested in connecting with them and seeing what they're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, send me a message if you.
Okay, if you send me your email or put your contact information in the chat, I'll copy it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thanks, Claire. I probably have 1,000 more questions. I've talked to you once because I was in the panda cohort, I guess, and I think were you the one after or something, or were you in?
I was in rhino. Cohort.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that was one before or one after, but anyway, it was great to know about you because as an artist and when I was going through Terra, I wasn't sure how to proceed as an artist at all. And, it just wasn't evident in the course so much. And so to see you here presented by Tara is really great. I think it's really needed. I mean, the storytelling, the emotional connection people have, the visual knowledge, the empathy comes from a different space. And I teach a workshop called color bathing, and I call it color of hope, and it's taking color and doing an exercise to observe color, kind of like forest walking, only with color, and then coming back together and observing art and looking for your color, and then thinking about how it made you feel, what it meant, and then doing abstract expressionist art. It's just based on abstract work, but opening the neural pathways of seeing the world through another venue than, the left brain. So for climate, all for the idea of new climate solutions and becoming more aware of how we can make these choices and live and stuff. So every time there's a hardline choice, there are other ways to go about it than just, pounding into the decision and sorting it out. And even data doesn't always, it helps bring a light of intelligence to a subject, but sometimes you need a personal connection or attachment to the answer, and that isn't illicit. It isn't assumed in that process either. So I think there's a place for art and for creativity in the space, and I'm still trying to figure out how to make a living, but
Yeah, it's not easy as an artist, I tell you.
I know.
It's possible, but yeah. I think I'm really interested in science communication. I feel like I hope that at some point, and in some ways I am doing that, thinking about the biodiversity crisis, because the statistics, you can kind of like bang someone over the head with the statistics, but until you feel how much we're going to miss this world when it vanishes, because I think honestly, I think that the world has gotten, it's such a mess, right? It's just dumpster fire, disaster mess. But I think that no matter what your political spectrum is, humans, most humans, our nervous system will literally calm down when we're in nature, right? It's not
right, absolutely.
And we're such emotional. I think that that's another thing that maybe that why I'm really interested in art and storytelling is that we're really emotionally driven creatures. I even think that the ones of us that I have it's funny enough, I have a background in policy. Before I became an artist, I was a policy. But I went into policy because I cared really deeply, so I was interested in the facts, but the reason why I was interested in the facts is because of my feelings, my emotions. So I think that we make decisions based on emotions, which we're seeing to kind of catastrophic effect is being played out with with social media, right? Speaking of storytelling, that's a emotion evoking machine right there, right? It's just the wrong emotion. So of course, I think that it's such a powerful tool, and I think that I don't know. I honestly, and I don't know exactly what the solution to it is, but I can't think of anything that evokes for me more emotion than imagining not being able to share the natural world with my child or with my grandchildren, right? And I'm surprised sometimes that story isn't told more often, because I think that matters just to people, I don't know. Yeah.
It's like we're stealing from the future.
Yeah,
The future world.
I want to go scuba diving with my grandkids, not even, I mean, even just from a selfish point of view, I want that, and yeah, I don't know. I think so, something you said,
so cool.
you can reach someone and be like, oh, you won't be able to go skiing with your grandkids, and sometimes, and that makes people care, right? I think that it's connecting to those emotional connections that we have with the natural world are important. Yeah.
So it is mostly because you've been so well exhibited. Do your opportunities, and it sounds like that art museum in Berlin or Germany came to you, but do most of your opportunities come that way through sort of they already know you, or do you seek them yourself? And in the early days, how did you do it? Because I'm actually working with a scientist right now, and we have all kinds of projects going on. It's really exciting, but I'm kind of thinking about, do I approach people for the venues, or, how I do it? But
Yeah, so I'm a little different than most people. I actually teach business planning for artists.
Oh, you do?
I
Okay.
do, yeah. I do it through a nonprofit here in Berlin because I think it's so important because I feel like the marketing business side of things are things that you don't learn, especially if you went to art school, which I didn't. So I always kind of approached it as like, okay, this is my business. How do I run it?
Oh, okay.
So
Great.
I actually, I mean, I do sometimes apply to things just because I can't wait to get the rejection email. Like that never works on my side. But actually what I did do was, which I tell my students is I say, do like make the work you want to get paid for, basically. So I had this like weird idea that I wanted to do three-dimensional installations and get paid by, to do them. So I built a three-dimensional installation that no one asked for, and then I documented it really well, and then I shared it. And I do,
Yeah.
I write my own press releases. I do my own social media. Like I definitely just put the work out there in the world that I want to get paid to do. And I also think like even with the shift towards being like a quote unquote like environmentalist artist, I was like shy to make that pivot. And then I was like, you know what? Like, why not? Like it's my story. I get to say what my work is about. And so yeah, that's like such a longer, I wish I could talk to you for an hour and tell you what I tell all my students. But the short answer is like, no, I don't go the traditional routes, because I often find that I'm self-taught. So I'm like, a lot of those routes are close to me. But the interesting thing is that I've just been kind of like doing my thing consistently for about like 8 years now. And now the institutional museum gallery world is like starting to knock on my door, right? Like it was easier to break into the commercial work and harder to break into the fine art world, but eventually it's slowly happening. Yeah.
Yay. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a long journey. Lots of yeah. Also, I'm a huge fan of faking it till you make it. Yeah, I think it's okay. Yeah, I think on like so yeah the internet is just such a gift. My mom was an artist when she was younger. She was a textile artist. She did weavings and tapestries, and like me, she lived abroad. But back then there was no internet, and she told the story that she was living in Thailand, and she got an invitation to be part of an exhibition in the mail 2 months after the exhibition already started. So it's like she was like, it was impossible for me to be international. My dad was in the foreign service, so she couldn't be an artist. And I think she's like, the difference is that I can connect to people that would be interested in my work. So yeah, it's been what wasn't possible for her is possible for me. And I think that's, been great.
Yeah.
That's really lovely. Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions that you'd like to ask? We have about 5 more minutes left and the floor is open. Okay, maybe I can follow up with another question for you. What advice, and I know we've spoken a lot about this, but what advice would you give to someone maybe earlier on in their career who wants to be an artist, who wants to be in the creative field, set out on a path like you did? Or perhaps if you could do it all over again, what are maybe the things that you would do different this time around?
Oh God, I would be careful what contracts I sign. Because I definitely, this is part of the reason why I teach business planning to artists, is to like teach them to not do the mistakes that I did. Because well, two things. One is that people expect artists to work for free, which is unacceptable. So you should say no when people want you to do that. Unless you're choosing to volunteer with someone. But I think I saw a creative on online, and they said that they have an email box, a folder just called Audacity, where they just put in the emails that people that send them asking them to work for free. So that's one thing, is like to protect your time and effort. And then the second thing is be really careful what you sign. Like I make sure that it's time bound, and make sure that you set how many revisions they're allowed to ask for. Because I didn't do that in the beginning, and then I had already signed the contract, and like I didn't set boundaries. Yeah, so those were two things. Yeah, I think that artists, for me, I think that's a kind of universal experience with artists, is that they assume that because you're like so lucky that you're an artist and you're so having fun all the time doing that, it's not work, but it's totally work, especially once the contract is signed and like they approve the concept and you're executing it. For me, like that's work, you know, like it's not playing in my studio. I'm not like exploring my own ideas. I'm executing someone's vision, and it's work, and it deserves to be paid. Which I know sounds so obvious, but like weirdly, it needs to be said sometimes, because I think people think that because you're an artist, you're doing your passion and you're doing like your hobby. And I think that the earlier, if I could do it again, I would have set boundaries. I would have raised my prices much earlier, and I would have been really, really clear about like, you know, this many round of revisions, and after that you pay my day rate. Because yeah, it's amazing how quickly people are happy with the design as soon as they have to pay for a revision. You're like, oh, actually, it's perfect. Yeah. Mm.
Seems fair. And how long does it take you to put a piece together?
Oh gosh, it really depends. But I would say like 6 to 8 weeks is by Lorenza is a comfortable, nice timeline. Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's all for today. Does anyone have any last questions or comments that they would like to share? Otherwise, we can.
No, just thanks again for your sharing your beautiful work.
Thank you so much, Mary.
Thank you everyone for being here. And of course, thank you, Claire, so much for sharing all of this. I know I've learned a lot, and I think it's just made me see climate art very differently. So please
Thank
keep
you so
doing
much.
what you're doing. I think we need more people like this. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night or day wherever you are, and hopefully see you soon.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.